For nearly as long as they lived in America, Asian and Pacific Islander Americans have volunteered to defend and serve our country. Asian and Pacific Islander Americans' service and sacrifice can be traced back more than 150 years to the Civil War, where they fought on both sides of the conflict. Immigrants or children of immigrants from some 21 East Asian or Pacific Island nations fought for the Union or Confederate armies. Two such soldiers were Christopher and Stephen Bunker, sons of the conjoined twins Chang and Eng, who immigrated to the United States from Thailand in 1839. Christopher and Stephen served in the Confederate Army. Chang's grandson, Caleb V. Hayes, served honorably in the Army and Army Air Force, retiring in 1953 as a Major General in the United States Air Force. Born in the Philippines, Felix Baldberry immigrated to America and worked on a Michigan farm before enlisting in the Union Army and fighting with the 11th Michigan Infantry. Baldberry's war injuries left him partially paralyzed and forced him to abandon farming when the war ended. Baldberry was one of the few Asian and Pacific Islander American veterans to receive a U.S. pension for his military service and disability. Asian immigration to the United States came to an abrupt halt soon after the Civil War, when Congress passed the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. The law, which was expanded to include Hawaiians and Filipinos, was the first federal law to ban a specific ethnic group from emigrating to the United States. With most Asians barred from our shores, few Asian and Pacific Islander Americans served in the Spanish-American War. However, Filipino scouts joined the U.S. Army for service as a constabulary force following the war. One of them, U.S. Army Private Jose Nesperos, became the first Asian and Pacific Islander American to receive the Medal of Honor in 1911. Though they were still few in number and subject to discriminatory laws, Asian and Pacific Islander Americans answered the call to service when America went to war in 1917. Sergeant Major Tokutaro Nishimura Slocum, an immigrant from Japan, enlisted and saw action in the San Miguel and the Meuse-Argonne campaigns. Bhagat Singh Tin came to America from India to further his education, but soon left school to enlist in the Army during World War I, rising to the rank of sergeant. After his military service, Tin returned to his studies and earned a Ph.D. in metaphysics. Both Slocum and Tin had hoped that risking their lives for America would make them eligible for citizenship. Tin fought all the way to the United States Supreme Court for that right, but lost. Though the High Court refused him, Tin ultimately gained citizenship through the state of New York in 1936. Slocum took a legislative route, lobbying for and gaining citizenship from federal legislation granting citizenship for Asian and Pacific Islander American veterans of World War I in 1935, some 20 years after his service. World War II became a watershed moment for Asian and Pacific Islander American participation in the U.S. military. Though the experiences of these ethnic groups differed, Asian and Pacific Islander Americans fought valiantly and in great numbers for the United States in all theaters of World War II. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States government forced people of Japanese ancestry, primarily on the West Coast, regardless of their citizenship, to move to permanent relocation centers. Japanese Americans who were serving in the military at the time of the attack were segregated out of their units. Nonetheless, the mostly Nisei or second-generation Japanese American 100th Infantry Battalion and the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, made up of Nisei volunteers, fought with distinction in Italy and southern France. Even as their families were interned at home, the members of the 442nd demonstrated uncommon patriotism and courage. Their motto was "Go for broke," and they did. 14,000 men from the 442 Regimental Combat Team and the 100th Infantry Battalion earned 21 Medals of Honor, 9,486 Purple Hearts, and other numerous decorations. The 442nd was also awarded an unprecedented 8 Presidential Unit citations. Another 6,000 Japanese-American soldiers served in the military intelligence service in the Pacific, where they contributed vital translation and intelligence gathering services essential to the American victory. Not all members of the 100th Infantry Battalion were Japanese. Lieutenant Young Ok Kim, a Korean-American, was assigned to the 100th after graduating from Officer Candidate School. When offered a chance to transfer due to the possible hostility between Japanese and Korean troops, Kim expressed the true spirit of this country. He refused. He said, "There are no Japanese or Koreans here. We're all Americans, and we're fighting for the same cause." Hundreds of thousands of Filipinos living in the Philippines and the United States volunteered to serve in the United States Armed Forces or fought as guerrillas during the Japanese occupation of their islands. After Japan's initial conquest of the islands in 1942, Filipinos represented some 66,000 of the 78,000 American troops who surrendered. 6,000 to 10,000 Filipino service members died during the infamous Bataan Death March, when the Japanese forced the prisoners to march 70 miles in 1 week. 2 all-Filipino infantry regiments totaling 9,000 men participated in bloody combat in New Guinea, Leyte, Samar, Luzon, and the southern Philippines. Sergeant Jose Kaluga, a Filipino scout, was the only Filipino soldier to be awarded the Medal of Honor. Though President Roosevelt had promised these fighters a path to U.S. citizenship and full veterans benefits, Congress rescinded this promise after the war. President Truman signed the Rescission Act in 1946 that denied benefits to Filipino soldiers and revoked their U.S. nationality. To date, this act has not been revoked. Though there were just over 100,000 Chinese Americans living in the United States mainland and in Hawaii at the time, some 20,000 Chinese Americans, nearly 1 in 5, served in the armed forces during World War II. Captain Francis B. Y., who was killed in 1944 while demonstrating uncommon valor in the Philippines, is the only Chinese American to have been awarded the Medal of Honor, the highest military award given in the United States. Chinese Americans were acknowledged for their role in the 23rd Fighter Group 14th Air Force, also known as the Flying Tigers, that fought the Japanese in China and supported cargo flights from India to China over the Himalayas. Chinese American women also made valuable contributions to the Women's Army Corps, the Army Air Force, and other branches of the U.S. military. In 1948, President Truman officially desegregated the armed forces, though Chinese Americans were integrated throughout the military service in World War II. In the Korean War, Asian and Pacific Islander Americans fought in integrated units. Among them was Corporal Hiroshi Miyamura, who was awarded the Medal of Honor for his courage in battle in the moments before he was captured and held as a prisoner of war by the North Koreans. Young Ok Kim, after being honorably discharged following World War II, returned to serve in the Korean War. He was promoted to major and became the first ethnic minority to command a combat battalion. Some 35,000 Asian and Pacific Islander Americans served in the Vietnam War. Taking advantage of their ability to pass as Vietnamese, the U.S. Army formed a Special Forces team of Asian and Pacific Islander Americans to gather intelligence. Asian and Pacific Islander Americans have served in the Gulf War, in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, and in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Today, they continue to enlist and enter West Point and other service academies at rates even greater than their proportion in the U.S. population. As of 2014, nearly 5%, or more than 100,000 active duty or selected reserve military members identified as Asian, Native Hawaiian, or a Pacific Islander. As America and its troops diversified, the military adapted. In 2017, the U.S. Army enabled more Sikhs and other religious minorities to serve by granting religious accommodations for dress and grooming. Asian and Pacific Islander Americans are making their presence felt throughout the military and reaching the highest levels of leadership. Eric Shinseki became the first Asian and Pacific Islander American four-star general in 1997 and was named the Army's 34th Chief of Staff in 1999. In 2001, Coral Wong Peach became the first Asian and Pacific Islander American woman to attain the rank of Brigadier General. In 2010, Asian and Pacific Islander Americans made up 3.7% of active duty members in the Army and Navy, with 3.9% of the officers. There is no doubt that as we build unified fighting forces drawn from our nation's greatest strength, our ethnic and racial diversity, American troops will be more than ready for the challenges of the 21st century.